this will be a working meeting where we are going to work through Senate Bill 387, Senate Bill 386, and Senate Bill 360. So we're going to start with Senate Bill 387, and if our reviser would please give us a brief overview.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 387 would amend the school district open enrollment law to authorize non-resident students currently attending a school district of non-residents to remain enrolled at that school district. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Committee, what questions do you have for Tamara, just as a refresher on Senate Bill 387? Senator Straub, do you have a question? Is the testimony available? It is. Okay, committee, do I have a motion to pass out Senate Bill 387, or to work Senate Bill 387? To work it.
I make a motion to work it, and I have an amendment.
Okay. So do you want to go ahead and let's get that amendment passed out? We can have a second to work on it. So do I have a second? Have a second. So we're going to work it. So Senator Sykes, would you like to explain it, or would you like the reviser to explain it?
I can give it a try, and then if you have other questions, I'll let Tamara answer those. When we had the hearing on this bill, there was some concern with the language for transportation, because there are times where there are applicable laws where a school district would have to provide transportation. So trying in the easiest possible way because I think the language before it was the receiving versus sending district, and so neither district would unless required by an applicable law.
So committee, what questions do you have on the amendment? I'm not seeing any questions, so would you like to move your amendment?
I will move my amendment.
So do I have a second on the amendment? Second from Senator Petty. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The amendment is on the underlying bill. Do we have any other amendments for Senate Bill 387? Senator Erickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have an amendment.
Senator Erickson, would you like to explain your amendment, or would you like the reviser to explain it?
I will attempt, and Tamara can correct me as necessary. So on page 2, you'll notice the balloon. And what this does is it already says that districts have to give notice to parents as to whether their child is accepted. This just gives a date certain that they must be notified on or before July 30th. And Madam Chair, that is just to make sure that parents know and can plan accordingly for where their child may attend school that following school year. So that's the reason for that. And then it adds a number 6 that says there's an appeals process. If a parent does not understand or wants to challenge what they have been told, whether they are accepted or not, then there's an appeals process.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So just as a point of clarification, when we look at line 8, also on the same page 2, it says such process, that would be the lottery process, shall be completed on or before the 15th of each year, and you're saying, and the parents will be notified within 2 weeks of that.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay. Any other questions on the amendment? Would you like to move your amendment?
I move my amendment.
Do I have a second? I have a second from Senator Straub. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, the amendment does pass. So do we have any additional amendments to Senate Bill 387? I'm seeing none. Do I have are there any additional questions or discussion about Senate Bill 387? Senator Blasey.
No, Madam Chair, but if you're ready, I'll make a motion to pass it out.
Okay, pass it out favorably as amended.
As amended.
Okay, do I have a second? I have a second from Senator Gossage. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Senate Bill 387 as amended passes out favorably. At this time, we'll turn our direction to Senate Bill 386, requiring enrollment under the Kansas School Equity and Enhancement Act to be determined using the current school year or the preceding school year, and requiring any district that closed a school building in the preceding school year to use the current year enrollment count. So, what additional information can you share with us, Revisor Lawrence?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just like to say the author of that short title did a great job in explaining what is in the bill, and I have nothing further to add.
Okay, there we go. I was not the author. I just read the title. So there we are. Do I have a motion to open up Senate Bill 386 to work? Okay, I have a motion from Senator Straub and a second from Senator O'Shea. Do we have any amendments for Senate Bill 386? Senator Sykes.
Do you want me to explain it, or is she passing out?
Uh, Do you have more than one?
I just have one.
Okay, let's get it passed out.
I do have it, yeah, I don't need it.
Senator Sykes, would you like to explain your amendment, or would you like the revisor to explain it?
I will explain it. So, I am very sympathetic to what happened at Wetmore and Wilson, but I think there are lots of reasons that you may have to close a school, and I'm afraid with on page 4 of the bill, that 4 section is going to have some unintended consequences, and I think we're asking our school districts to be responsible and best use taxpayer dollars. So it is striking that section of it out, saying that if a school district closed any school building, that they would have to, and in the preceding year, they would have to determine enrollment based on the current year.
Okay. So are there questions with the amendment? Could you share with us some unintended consequences?
Yeah, so I think there are several school districts. I know one of the school districts in the Kansas City area has a bond out there, so they may have to close temporarily 6 schools and then build some others. So it's not really a closure, but I think school districts, if they are choosing to close a building, there's a lot of thought process going into that. And if they have to, we have other carrots and sticks in place for this. And I just think we're kind of usurping control and could cause some issues.
So there we go. Could you give us a few examples of sticks that would be involved with regard to head count? Okay. Are there sticks with regard to head count?
Again, I will say I support local control, and I think when a school district chooses to close a school, there's a lot of thought and process going into that. And by putting this in there, we are going to penalize some of those, and we could keep some school district or some school buildings open. And that is not asking the school districts to be responsible to the taxpayers.
I think the word penalize or the penalty, or I think even the term punishment was used when we had the hearing on this bill with regard to that. And yet what we do know is that there was, we've had repeated examples where a school district has closed a building knowing that the students that attended that particular building would be moving to another district. And yet the funds didn't follow them, not only for the student, but the funds also didn't follow with regard to the 20 mil of the property. And so the district that got punished was the district that recouped that movement of students. But when we're talking about funding for schools, and we look at where we are today, and today, the per pupil spending is at $17,650. And if we just look back to the 2017-2018 year, we were at $13,620. So we see this growth of spending. And I think that the intention is that the money truly does follow where the children are, not that we continue to fund districts where the children aren't. So it's not a punishment. It is a part of when we talk about the careful planning that a district, their administration, as well as their elected school board members. So a part of that planning is understanding that when we close a building, if there's going to be a shift out of the district of children, that's going to be a part of the planning, that we're closing a building, we'll be using the head count of that next year, and that the money will follow the children that shift to another district if there's growth in that neighboring district. So to me, what is already here in the original language is the roadmap for planning for school districts if they're going to close. Now, an example was used in testimony about a school district near Topeka that actually closed a building to make it a community center, and they shouldn't be punished, but there was no decline in enrollment. It was just they chose to repurpose the building and shifted the catchment areas within the school district. So rather than attending this elementary, they shifted to another elementary within the district. So there obviously is no penalty, there's no punishment, because there wasn't a change in enrollment. It was just the building that the students would attend. Is there other discussion on this amendment? Are you ready to move your amendment?
I move my amendment.
So do I have a second? I have a second from Senator Petty. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. The chair is unclear. So if you are in favor of the amendment, please raise your right hand. Okay, so the amendment stays. So do we have any additional amendments or additional work on Senate Bill 386 at this time? Seeing none, do I have a motion to pass this out as amendment? Okay, I have a motion from Senator O'Shea. Do I have a second? I have a second from Senator Petty. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Senate Bill 386 passes out as amended. At this time, we will turn our attention to Senate Bill 360. And that is allowing taxpayers to elect the taxable year in which a subtraction modification for contributions to a 529 program account, ABLE account, or first-time homebuyer savings account would be applied, and authorizing the state treasurer to appoint a 529 program advisory council. Could you please give us a brief review?
Madam Chair, I could, but I would just be saying the same thing you just said.
Well, I think, could you clarify the time frame in which people can make that contribution count for tax purposes?
Yes, absolutely. So Senate Bill 386 would allow taxpayers who make a contribution to those three programs between January 1 and the income tax filing deadline, typically April 15th, to elect either the year the contribution was made or the prior year as the taxable year for that contribution.
Senator Gossage.
Are we ready to move it?
We are ready to take a motion for discussion.
All right, I'll put it that way.
Okay, so we have a motion from Senator Gossage. Do we have a second? Second from Senator O'Shea. Are there any amendments? Excuse me, Senator Straub. Senator Straub, let's get that corrected. So do we have any amendments? It is my understanding that there was a request for an amendment from the reviser, and it was to make sure that the language was consistent. Was it advisory committee? I think that the term advisory committee and advisory council is being used interchangeably, and the request was that it be consistent. So I see the shake of a head from the back of the row. Would you come forward and just kind of clarify so that we can have that official request? So start off by introducing yourself.
I'm Tracy, Kansas State Treasurer's Office. Yeah, we currently call it the Treasurer's Advisory Committee, and throughout the bill, I think it switches between committee and council.
Well, we don't have a motion yet to approve that, but do you know, in going through how many different times that we were looking for that? Is it on just one page or?
Yeah, it's the second page, italicized part, and I think you only use committee once. Throughout the bill, it says council, but currently we call it a committee. On the website, it's called a committee.
So it would be the advisory committee. Okay.
Yes.
So typically, we would have that in writing ahead of time, but I think you guys just caught it. And so we want to make sure that there's consistency there. So do I have a motion for our reviser to make that revision? Senator Dietrich?
Madam Chair, I would move that the reviser changes the word council to committee throughout Senate Bill 360.
Okay. Hey, Chase. Tell him it's Senator. Okay. So I have a second from Senator Petty. Is there any additional discussion? All those in favor of the conceptual amendment, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? So we are back on Senate Bill 360. Any additional changes needed or amendments needed for Senate Bill 360? I am not seeing any. Do I have a motion to pass out favorably as amended? Senator Gossage?
Madam Chair, because this aligns the savings vehicles like IRAs, HSAs, it just makes sense. I am happy to request that we move this or that we pass this bill out favorably, Bill 360, as amended.
And I do have a second from Senator Straub. Seeing no hands for discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Senate Bill 360 passes out favorably as amended. Committee, tomorrow we are going to have Chuck Knapp is going to be here with his JAG-K students. We also have some students from the Kansas School for the Blind that will be visiting. So I think we'll want to be here ready to start because I know when the kids start talking, they are the most compelling as far as sharing their experiences, so we'll be here for that. I do want the committee to know that in working with JG, I found a document that was originally dated from 2015 that had the history of total Kansas USD funding. So it starts from 2005. It takes us to the 22-23 school year. It has per pupil spending, local revenue, state aid, federal aid, and then total fund expenditure. So he is going to make sure that that is available on PDF. And our assistant Cindy will get that online so that you can access it. But just wanted to make sure that from a visual standpoint, but also from a numerical standpoint, you could see what has really happened, well, you know, in almost the last 15 years. So it gives us a sense of where we have been moving as far as funding support for our schools throughout the state. So committee, we are now adjourned.